And before this video begins, I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asban Team level patron, Fallon Cortez. Thank you for supporting the channel. Hello everyone and welcome back to another Doctor Who lore video, this time kicking off Series 2. When it comes to the rogues gallery of Doctor Who villains, one of my personal favourite races is the Sycorax, who were introduced in the Christmas Invasion and have only had cameos since. I think the Sycorax are massively underrated and have so much potential thanks to their rich backstory and extensive lore from their few expanded media stories. So today I wanted to dive into the world of one of my all-time favourite Doctor Who species, the Sycorax. And as always, beware of spoilers for the following stories, so without any further ado, let's find out exactly why the Sycorax rock.
What? As in the modern sense they rock. What?
According to the Doctor Who Files reference book, the Sycorax come from a distant planet far out in the wastelands of the galaxy. This planet, named Sycorax, seemed to actually be a small asteroid composed mainly of rock and ice. This inhospitable world had very few natural resources, making life incredibly difficult, but the warlike Sycorax were still able to survive, fighting amongst their tribes for scraps of food and metal. The book explains that the primitive Sycorax worshipped Astrophia, goddess of darkness and death. Each tribe would try to outdo the others in reverence and offerings, with the Sycorax shaman, the tribal wise men, carrying out rites of blood and sacrifice in an attempt to win favour for their tribes and misfortune to others in battle. This tribal conflict continued for many centuries, until a spaceship crashed onto the surface of their world, alerting them to the existence of other beings in the universe. So after making such a groundbreaking discovery that completely changed their entire outlook on life, the Wholmes tribe naturally decided the appropriate reaction would be to enslave the survivors and force them to impart their knowledge and technology. You know, as you do. Since the other tribes resented and feared this discovery by the Wholmes tribe, war seemed to loom, until the shaman of the Wholmes basically went to the others and said, hold on, instead of us fighting over this, surely we should all team up to just get more of it. And I guess the other tribes were just kind of like, yeah, that actually makes sense. United after the common goal of exploiting the newly discovered universe full of riches, the Sycorax developed their technology. However, since they had almost no metal on their world, they came up with the idea of piloting the asteroid from planet to planet, plundering wealth and enslaving others to do everything for them. They were essentially a species of raiders, intimidating planets to grow their own wealth and resources over many generations, even if they didn't necessarily have the strength to fight back against anyone resisting. However, eventually the mechanism allowing them to travel failed, with the asteroid becoming trapped in the orbit of a planet at the outer reaches of our own solar system. This threatened the way of life for the Sycorax, but they didn't want to give up this lucrative space scavenging lifestyle because the alternative was a life of hardship and difficulty. Therefore, each tribe broke off a piece of the asteroid, and this resulted in a vast armada, with these smaller asteroid ships travelling to different planets to ransack, with the rest of the fleet ready to be summoned to take a planet by force. However, this probably didn't happen very often because the tribal shaman resurrected the lost rites of their god Astrophia. Combining these rituals with their new technologies, the Sycorax were able to control the races of the planets they sought to pillage. To quote the Doctor Who Files book, the Sycorax armada swept through the galaxy, leaving devastated worlds in its wake. None stood against it. It's easy to see why the Sycorax were so successful in their intimidation tactics. First of all, they stand at approximately 6'2", which means they'd tower over a 5'7" short king like myself. Almost every aspect of Sycorax culture was designed to provoke fear and showcase power and status. According to Final Darkness, some Sycorax pups would be torn from the bellies of their fathers and thrown to the snake baths of Hentek, the last time many of them would ever know fear. The Monsterful also claims that the Sycorax purposefully flay their skin until it's raw and sharpen their teeth as a fear tactic, a level of savagery allowing them to build an empire of terror. To protect their flayed skin from the elements, the Sycorax adorn themselves with masks from the skulls of an equine race, along with a widow's curse showing us alien horses with similar skull helmets. The tribe would wear necklaces made from the bones of their enemies, and they would even wear their wife's rib as a marriage bond. As explained in harvested the Sycorax, in their ships the Sycorax would have large cathedral-like temples regulated by a priest. Inside these would be a giant statue of the Sycorax form referred to as a Wish of Bones. If it wasn't already obvious, these statues were, of course, made of the skulls of the species the Sycorax had murdered and conquered. Yeah, they had a serious thing for bones, to the extent that the Time Traveller's Diary even suggested that there was an annual Sycorax Bone Festival every 25th of September. Being a heavily tribalistic species, the Sycorax were obsessed with symbolism and imagery. Their blood-red velvet robe was an indication of wealth, and they were known to wear Jadoon skin belts, a lanyard of the Order of Pakraxis and Baltaric Spats, giving them a very fearsome appearance. However, the most notable symbol of power and influence was the staff of Hel Kak Ak Ak. And no, that wasn't me choking on a sweet. The Doctor Who Files reference book claims that the totems and decorations on this staff show the tribe and tribal status the holder represents. It could be used as a weapon, but the main purpose was this status symbol, to the extent that destroying it was seen as a huge insult, seen as an implication that the wielder was not worthy of the position they claimed. The Visual Dictionary goes on to elaborate that the staff featured a blood mane from the leader's first kill and claws from the Sycorax's pet razorbacks, so they love to do a little bit of accessorization. Despite all this emphasis on power and status, we don't actually know many of the Sycorax ranks. Of course, there are the warriors, whom I assume were just the grunts, the priests and the shamans, along with world seers who could identify signals from planets and direct the leader towards worlds to conquer. Jilfane Craw was the title given to female technicians, and Haxan Craw was the name given to the wife of the tribal leader. According to the Widow's Curse, Haxan Craw literally means the witch bitch. So, make of that what you will.
I don't like it.
But above all of these was the tribal chief himself, the Phadros Paluchka, which is once again a title rather than an individual name. The Visual Dictionary states that Sycorax lived for 400 years, with the Christmas invasion Sycorax leader taking 2.5 centuries to become head of the Halvinor tribe. This ascension took the form of various trials of strength in combat, presumably competing against others, further highlighting how ingrained warfare and violence was in Sycorax culture. Even in their native Sycoraxic language, the words for argument and fight were the same. They also didn't fear death, with Final Darkness introducing a Valhalla-style idea of heaven named the Glorious Plains of Hansak Chak Chifal. I guess all those years of Dark Isolation gave them plenty enough time to say all of these horribly long words. Anyway, the Sycorax preferred to conquer planets with no resistance, but their love of fighting and warrior culture meant they would never turn away from combat if challenged. However, mercy was seen as a weakness. So as we see in the Christmas invasion, the Sycorax were willing to break the sanctified rules of combat and refuse to accept defeat. So, you really can't trust them because their desire for victory at all costs overrules the idea of honour. The Sycorax had a few different favoured weapons for their conquests, such as the Torquefish, a small skeletal creature that would be wrapped around a prisoner's neck and only released its grip when its prey was dead. There was also the Death Whip, which the Doctor Who Files describes as one of the most fearsome weapons in existence. Just one touch from this whip would instantly disintegrate every atom of human flesh, although the Sycorax only really used this to punish prisoners and inspire fear, rather than using it for combat. By far the most valued weapon by the Sycorax was the broadsword, which the Visual Dictionary describes as having a plumage of courage, a pommel embedded with precious stones, a barbed handle, and a blade forged from Samavajam. With all this combat experience, it's no surprise that, according to the Doctor and Agent Provocateur, the Sycorax were one of only 3 species to survive the end of the universe, although maybe, like Coldest War suggests, that's because they're like cockroaches. However, despite all the elements of tribal culture and combat, my favourite aspect of the Sycorax are actually their giant asteroid ships. I love the idea of an alien race not only living within asteroids, but also piloting them as natural ships, which is exactly the MO of the Sycorax. According to the Monster Vault, their spaceships were built into the shells of spacefaring Triton snails, but Coldest War claims that they used an indigenous rock-eating worm to hollow out asteroids to turn into ships. These hollowed out tunnels and chambers were filled with worship chambers, sleeping halls, and even cryogenic facilities. These facilities looked like ancient graves, but were actually state-of-the-art suspended animation cells using the natural rock as conductor. According to Harvest of the Sycorax, the ship itself would often use the molten core of the meteor as its fuel, and the engine room looked like a volcano. In most cases, these huge engines would be all-speed intersystem Type K engines, but Coldest War introduces Sycorax who were using a Type K2 engine instead, which apparently used fission ignition energy. The visual dictionary claims that the Sycorax tribe in the Christmas invasion specifically inhabited a barren asteroid from the JX-82 system named the Fire Trap. One of the main locations within the Fire Trap was the Hall of Warpacks, a great hall hollowed out of the asteroid's core many centuries before the ship's ultimate destruction. This hall was mainly used for tribal meetings, with the hole in the roof allowing solar and lunar light for ancient Sycorax rituals. I just really love the look and feel of these great asteroid ships. They have such a unique design and atmosphere, and I think Doctor Who could do so much more with it. Along with their ships, their warrior ways and their tribes, the last main pillar of Sycorax society was their superstition, specifically their blood control, which the Doctor Who files suggest is their particular favourite rite. With just a few drops of blood, the Sycorax could gain control over huge amounts of people and control their minds to an extent, spreading fear and panic in their victims. In some cases, like Coldest War, they could even use these human puppets as translators to speak through. However, as we see in the Christmas invasion, there was only so much this blood control could achieve, with self-preservation preventing the controlled beings from actually dying.
We allow them to live.
The Doctor knew of the Sycorax and their blood control from as early on as his 7th incarnation, although they had been present in a 4th Doctor short story. The Big Finish audio Harvest of the Sycorax shows a far future where humanity has become addicted to over-medicating itself thanks to PharmaCorp, a self-serving corporation controlling the medical care of the entire human empire. The biodata of every member of the human race was stored on the space station known as the Blood Bank. This abundance of blood led to the Sycorax attempting to invade the facility to gain control over the human race. The 7th Doctor worked with technician Zanzibar hashtag yes, that's her real name, to fight back against the invaders, although they managed to take a blood sample from the Doctor and control him. Zanzibar was tricked into opening the vault, and then she found out that PharmaCorp had sold out humanity to the Sycorax for profit. In an effort to save humanity, Zanzibar was forced to duel the half-controlled Doctor, with the pair outsmarting the Sycorax by using the blood control against them. This allowed the heroes to teleport the aliens onto their ship in a comatose state, leaving them to wake up whenever the blood control eventually wore off. Interestingly, the Doctor states multiple times in this audio that the Sycorax are complete monsters.
The Sycorax have never done anything charming in their lives.
Almost refusing to believe they're capable of any good, which is an interesting perspective for the character to maintain throughout many different incarnations. The Doctor's next big encounter with the Sycorax is the 2006 Christmas invasion, with all seen in the story of the same name. And yes, it took place in 2006, not 2005 when it was broadcast. Interestingly, the Doctor Who Files book has a short story named The Final Darkness, which tells the events from the Sycorax point of view. After learning of Earth and its values in precious stones, metals, minerals and slaves, the Raiders considered it their next jewel plucked from the glittering heavens. They already had eyes on the planet even before the Guinevere 1 probe crashed into them, although this collision allowed them to enact their blood control over the human race. The opportunistic pilot fish heralded the Sycorax invasion, although the two species were completely unrelated. As the Sycorax ship entered Earth's atmosphere, the recently regenerated 10th Doctor was out of action, and the human race almost crumbled to the scare tactics that had worked on so many other species in the past. However, when the Doctor woke up, he broke the blood control and defeated the Sycorax leader in a sword fight, triggering the Kojux flap to kill him. Final Darkness gives us a great glimpse into the despondent, vengeful atmosphere amongst the defeated Sycorax. They felt humiliated and shamed, planning on leaving for the wilderness beyond the Milky Way galaxy, hoping the freezing wastes of far space would help to soothe the burning, bitter blackness in their hearts after being defeated by a species they considered cattle. However, as the ship was leaving Earth's orbit, it was destroyed by Harriet Jones and Torchwood as retaliation for the invasion, seemingly destroying the entire Halvanor tribe. However, despite the destruction at the end of the Christmas invasion, the story of the Halvanor tribe was actually far from all over. The 2008 comic The Widow's Curse saw the 10th Doctor and Donna travelling to Shadow Cay, a mysterious new island near Cuba that seemingly appeared overnight, despite humanity's insistence that it had always been there. When they arrived on the island, which by the way casually had a perfect replica of Westminster Abbey, they found out it was home to a tribe of female Sycorax, who had used magma sculpting software to create a facade of a living, breathing island and a lithic womb to create zombie-like abstracts resembling humans. So, with all that said, worst holiday destination ever. These Sycorax were led by the Haxon Craw, revealing that every Sycorax in this group was a widow or a sister of the destroyed Halvanor invasion force. Haxan Craw was the wife of the Fadras Paluchka, searching for 2 years to find out what had happened to her husband and his ship. Upon recovery of the Thorax Vox, which was essentially the Firetrap's black box, the Haxan Craw discovered her husband's defeat and death at the hands of the Doctor, whom she dubbed Praktal Chif Char, which means happy murderer. Which, yeah, that fits. To enact their revenge, the Gilfane Craw placed a curse of eternal suffering upon Earth, although she ended up getting tackled into the lithic womb and dissolved in the acid. Whoops. The Sycorax planned on flying their phage abstracts into London on a plane to spread a virus that would remove the human immune system but also prevent death, forcing humanity to suffer hundreds of years of agony. However, the Doctor took control of the abstracts and the magma sculpting software, defeating the villain's plan. As the island, which was a Sycorax ship, began to take off, Haxan Craw and the Doctor had a standoff, only for the side character Jean to kill the Haxan Craw for murdering her husband Harry. As the heroes escaped, the ship exploded, and the Doctor reflected upon the unhealthy nature of revenge, which had caused the final destruction of the legendary Halvanor tribe. According to the book Snow Globe 7, the Sycorax did return to Earth in the late 21st century with hostile intentions, but they left once again pretty quickly. Although probably alive this time. There were also a lot of instances of lone Sycorax wandering around the universe in places like the Maldovarium and the Sycorax on the Jadoon asteroid prison. The Monster Vault claims that, and I quote, Sycorax can be found in disreputable drinking establishments across the cosmos, trying to either hawk their ill-gotten gains or to intimidate someone into buying them a drink. One of the main solo Sycorax operatives appeared in the comic Agent Provocateur. In this comic, we're introduced to the last survivor member of the Astrophia tribe, who were wiped out in the Valhalla Wars of the 41st century. He started up a business of collecting the last members of nearly extinct species, putting them into stasis and using shape-shifting aliens to pretend to be such survivors so they could be hunted. However, the 10th Doctor and Martha came across this scheme and stopped the Sycorax, tricking him and unlocking the pods to free every alien in the collection, placing him at their mercy. The comic story Once Upon a Time Lord also introduces the Sycorax pirate Admiral Scar, who was a very unique member of the species, complete with an eye patch. This tyrannical admiral commanded a giant ship made of bones and was obsessed with capturing the mighty Traltanicus. Of course, the 10th Doctor got involved in this pirate adventure, using the TARDIS to pull the Sycorax ship under a plasma sea of Serenia 7, where it was eaten by the absolutely massive lad Traltanicus. Like seriously, this boy is thick.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
The Doctor then materialised inside the belly of the beast, offering to save Scar and his crew, who reluctantly accepted because they kind of didn't have any other way out. In the Choose Your Own Adventure book The Coldest War, the Sycorax appear once again, this time as a monster in an 11th Doctor story. At some point, a Sycorax tribe came across a Kriflock drifting near a red star. Kriflocks, or Irali, were ravenous yet placid deep space creatures that fed on energy and had some level of psychic ability. So the Sycorax brought it into their asteroid in the hopes that they could sell such a galactic curiosity for a big price. However, as the Sycorax were chasing a thieving, shape-shifting Yarkop, the Kriflock woke up and drained the ship, causing it to crash into the Antarctic alongside the TARDIS. The Sycorax found an Antarctic research base and exercised blood control over the workers before the Doctor reluctantly worked with a Sycorax warrior to resolve things, and in most endings, the aliens left with their ship refueled. It's a choose your own adventure book, so there's not a huge amount of depth there. Later on in the 11th Doctor era, the Sycorax were present at both Trenzalore and the Pandorica Alliance, although they didn't have a major role and preferred to just sit back. I guess they were just kind of there for the good vibes. The next time the Sycorax appeared in Doctor Who media was the comic Ghost Stories. This took place years after the event of the return of Dr. Mysterio, and saw the 12th Doctor asking Grant Gordon and his family to help him track down the Hazandra Gemstone's 3 siblings. After finding the first 2, the quartet of heroes landed on a Sycorax ship led by Craxnor, who possessed the Bloodstone Sanguinar, which was apparently sacred to his people. Craxnor used this gemstone to power a sacrifice engine with the intention of sacrificing the souls of 4 planets to save the universe from dark energy. The Doctor and Grant fought the Sycorax, whilst Lucy and her daughter Jennifer retrieved the Bloodstone, destroying the ship, although a number of Sycorax escaped in spaceships, while the heroes travelled onwards to unite the 4 crystals and save the universe without the casual mass murder of like 24 billion people. Lastly, for expanded media stories, Into Control saw the 14th Doctor encountering a Sycorax tribe shortly after his regeneration. Interestingly, this tribe was led by a queen rather than a tribal chief, and she was at least half a meter taller than those around her. Instead of the crimson red robes, she wore vermilion ones, with the prose version of the comic elaborating that her mask was threaded with veins and arteries still pulsing with ghostly life, along with her eyes being purple ringed with yellow, and that she had 2 tongues. This Sycorax queen knew of the Doctor from his victory against the Halvinor tribe, and she had recovered the same broadsword from the Christmas invasion. She tried to control the Doctor with the blood extracted from the sword, only for it to fail because the 14th Doctor simply just looked like the 10th Doctor. They had entirely different cells and blood. The Sycorax Queen wanted to use the Doctor's compassion for the weak to fuel their engines, only for him to fight back and cause her to fall into a bile pit, although she managed to teleport away. The now freed slaves of the Sycorax worked together to stop the ship self-destructing and return to their homes, with the Doctor musing to his pig companion Alfredo that there will be a reckoning someday, since the Sycorax and the Queen were still out there. Hopefully this means they're actually going to come back in the show. I know I mentioned it at the start, but I really do love the Sycorax, and I think they have so much potential as a strong recurring Doctor Who villain. They're so interesting with lots of lore, like how they eat Jadoon for meals, and their scavenging, tribal nature means they're very different to other Doctor Who monsters who run around with laser blasters and sleek spaceships. The Sycorax Empire is rich with lore and possibilities. Even the Sycoraxic language is pretty fleshed out, with a lot of words and terms established already. Their refusal to speak Earth languages or other primitive bile that would dirty their tongues has given us terms like Kiskfar, a unit of distance equal to 1,000 miles, Slinkjack, a trade reward, and the iconic insult Kralak Pelgasak Kree Salvak. They're also one of the few Doctor Who monsters to have their own unique native name in their own language, that being Sycora. I just really enjoy all the world building around the Sycorax, and I always want to see more of them. I think they deserve better than just being background cameos all the time. The Sycorax have one of the most distinct and striking designs and aesthetics of the New Who original monsters, so it still shocks me that they've only ever been the proper villain of one TV story. But of course, that's all just my opinion. I hope you all enjoyed this Series 2 lore video, and even if you didn't, at least you probably learned something new. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. And I'd just like to give an extra special thank you to my Asbantium level patron Fallon Cortez, my Diamond level patron Glenna Clark, my Platinum level patrons Matthew Burns and Maximilian Foreman, and all my Gold level patrons Daniel Shillito, Francois AK Line Vortex, Lee Marie Farrell, Thomas R, and Thomas Price. Thank you so much for your support.